Hello.
Good evening,
How are you?
Mr. Real. How are you?
I'm so good. It's a beautiful Friday. The girlfriend and I sat around watching a wildlife video from Australia. So I got to see some kangaroos, some wombats.
Did you
Uh,
say the girlfriend?
I don't know how I worded it, but me
I
and my
think you said the
girlfriend watched.
girlfriend and I.
Yeah, the girlfriend and I.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Grammar doesn't always matter when you're just
No,
being.
no, I've just never heard it put that way. It's usually I hear my girlfriend or something more possessive is all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, she doesn't belong to me. But yeah, so there we go.
The
uh,
old lady and I were hanging around the house shooting
no,
squirrels from the porch.
I was trying to avoid that. But we had a good time. We watched the animals there in Australia, kangaroos jumping around. If I was a kangaroo, I would find debris and I would put it in the other kangaroo's pocket. I'd just like put crap in their pocket. So like after a month, if they looked in there, they'd be like, "Who the hell put all this stuff in here?"
You would be the life of the kangaroo party, Mr. Real. There can be little doubt about that.
So there's that. What's going on in your world?
What's going on in my world? Everything is, excuse me, fabulous in my world. Been working really hard on a bunch of different things, as you know.
Mhm.
I had a little problem with my ears this afternoon. They were burning just a little bit, but it got better after a while.
Yeah,
But other
there
than
you
that, I'm
go.
just fine. How are
Yeah.
you doing? How's your health?
Good. Allergies. So if I do, I might be blowing my nose a lot tonight. Sorry about that, folks, but I do have some
I
allergies.
hate that.
Yeah, it came on, I think, late last night, and been dealing with it most of the day today. I
Mm.
do think, you mentioned this. We should put this up on the
Oh
screen,
yeah,
and
yeah. And
keep
this
this
isn't funny,
here.
so let's bring it down a little bit now. Um, This is something that happened last weekend. Don Bradley, who is a well-known personality and scholar in the Mormon and post-Mormon sphere, lost his son, his young adult son, I believe, suddenly, tragically, in Utah, and I believe they're going to have the funeral tomorrow. I know some people who were invited, but it'll be there probably in Utah. So over at Fair Mormon, those guys we love to hate, they have put up through a GoFundMe kind of substitute thing called Butter Me Up. Hang on, what is it? Add butter, more butter, please butter. What is
Uh,
it?
it is Give Butter,
Give
givebutter.com.
butter. It's so catchy. Give butter. And what we have is they're doing a fundraiser for him. Now, we cannot take or vouch for what's going to happen to this money when it goes through Fair's fingers because sometimes Fair is foul.
Yeah,
But I would hope and expect that even though they're over the amount of the goal was 10,000. What are they up to now, Bill?
19,600.
19,600.
19,600. By the
Okay.
way, I put the same thing. This is what I put I pinned this message, and this isn't a moment to be political, not trying to get a jab in.
No.
But as you're noting, people deserve to be aware that it's Fair Mormon that's running the fundraiser, and they don't have the best track record for honesty. And I think people deserve to know that up front. But you gave this morning, when you notified me of this, I gave, we are highly recommending that folks consider donating to this fundraiser to help the Bradley family.
Yeah, like I said, the goal was 10,000. They're almost double that now. So, take that into account. Take everything into account. We just want to make sure everybody knows that hopefully at times like this, we can especially pull together as a community.
Yeah, and just condolences from the both of us to you, Don, and to your family, and to the things that you're dealing with.
Yeah. And
There's
the
that.
upside, I guess, was that since they know me there at Fair, that my donation coming through is a big FU to the good people at Fair. And then you got to do the same thing. You gave them a big FU too with Mormon Discussions Inc., didn't you?
So Mormon Discussion donated something as well, and which is great because it's the right thing to do. It's a little Wilford Brimley, right? But um, it's also nice to know that they'll see that uh, folks on this side care and do things, and maybe they could be a little more charitable with how they treat those who draw attention to the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're the guy who actually got eliminated over there. You got erased
Erased.
at
I'm no
Fair Mormon.
longer. Yeah.
Does everybody know that?
I
That you're looking at
disappeared
the
from
guy, you're looking at the only cadet who ever beat the Kobayashi Maru scenario. No, you're
uh,
looking at the only guy that I know of, how would you know? Who actually used to be present on the Fair Mormon website in voice, image, um, words, name, and then Bill went rogue and they decided to erase his name and image from every obelisk and pillar.
I'm in conferences with Don Bradley, by the way, Maxine Hanks and Janet Eyring. And you go find those pictures now, and the pictures are much smaller, closer up. And one of those people I mentioned, including myself, is not in the photos.
Yes, Bill got subjected to a severe crop.
It's where the rules of the game, which you say to the church, it represents its subsidiaries too, by the way, is that Fair Mormon made me disappear.
They did. They vanished him.
Oh my goodness.
But they're secure in their testimony. You can tell.
Yeah, they're doing great.
So, other than that, this. Did you want me to talk about anything at this point, Bill, like about Colby Townsend? Because I was going to talk about that last week and we didn't get to it.
Yep, let's do that. I did put the number up on the screen so folks can start to call in. Also, I'll put in the live chat the URL that you can come right into the studio if you want to be part of the show. And you can turn off your camera if you want to remain anonymous. Otherwise, come on in and join the show that way. And the phone number is in the YouTube synopsis, but 662-667-6667. RFM, what are you thinking in terms of Colby Townsend?
Okay, so Colby Townsend, not to be confused with Colby Reddish, which I did once, but Colby Townsend, who is the non-Mormon, never been Mormon, actually Jewish, I believe, scholar of things Mormon, who just published his long-awaited paper about Adam Clark commentary appearing in the Isaiah chapters in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
So he was on, he wasn't on, he's too busy to be on anybody's show. And I mean that seriously. He didn't make it on Mormon Stories. He didn't make it on our show, but we both talked about his research and how important it is. And the whole thing that was so funny about it, in an interesting way to me, is that it been long awaited? It has been to me because I've known about it. Okay, so what was it? 3 years ago, I'm doing an episode. It was probably some kind of episode about the JST and the Adam Clark Bible commentary in the JST. That would be the most likely place where I would have mentioned this other thing.
This was episode, I think, 190. Is this the Adam Clark connection?
It certainly could be.
I'm going to put it up on the screen just so that folks can see
So I'm
this.
talking about that. Yeah, those are the good old days when you didn't have to look at my face. I guess you still don't have to.
Yeah, I think your brand got better when people could see your face.
Very, very kind of you, I'm sure.
I love it.
Well, anyway, so what happened was this, is that there had been an article that was published, I believe, before this, and it had to do with the fact that there was an item in Isaiah in the Book of Mormon. No, in Matthew in the Book of Mormon, in 3rd Nephi, in the Sermon on the Mount. It's the clause of without a cause. Whosoever is angry at his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And the background on this is that in the earliest manuscripts of the New Testament, the preferred reading that we have now is that without a cause is removed from the line. In other words, it just says, whosoever is angry with his brother shall be in danger of the judgment. That without a cause is removed because that looks like it was added later. Now, having said that and having set that part up, the Book of Mormon, when it's copying over the Sermon on the Mount, it also removes that clause. So it was argued by me and others based on papers that were written by BYU professors and apologists back in the 1980s that this was a remarkable evidence for the Book of Mormon, that Joseph Smith somehow was able to replicate a genuinely ancient version of Matthew in bringing it into the Book of Mormon. And by the way, the same thing happens with the Joseph Smith translation of Matthew. The same clause is dropped. And that as well was looked at with astonishment and with joyous cries of victory among the apologetic camps. This proves it. Well, this paper that I was talking about now, that came out a while back, I think it was in Dialogue. This was really a testimony buster for me. This really hurt, because what it said was that this clause was mentioned in the Adam Clarke Bible commentary. This whole thing I've told you that it's not there in the earliest manuscripts, and it probably shouldn't be there. And then all of a sudden it doesn't show up in what? Third Nephi? And then it doesn't show up in the Joseph Smith translation. And now it looks less like a proof of the truth of the Book of Mormon than it does evidence that Joseph Smith was cribbing from the Adam Clarke Bible commentary. Okay.
Yeah. Say that one more time. So I want to make sure I'm clear on what your conclusion there is.
My conclusion is simply that whereas back in the 1980s, this was looked at as proof of the Book of Mormon's truth, now it looks less like that and more like Joseph Smith was cribbing from the Adam Clarke Bible commentary.
Yeah. Instead of having one be the cause and one be sort of how you got there, whatever, how you got to the conclusion. It's the other way around. That once we realize that he had access to Clarke's commentary, he's using it prevalently. Now all the fixes that used to be evidence, all the things that we were taking the Bible back to its original form, actually just looks like it's a plagiarism of Joseph Smith by 19th century material.
And what we're going to be seeing, and maybe what we have seen, is it's the counterpoint of the same old Book of Abraham argument, which is you have sources. Okay. One of the arguments about the Book of Abraham being authentic is that there are stories in it that are not in the Bible and that were in manuscripts that Joseph Smith had available to him, but also in ancient manuscripts that Joseph Smith did not have available to him. The apologetic tactic is to come in and mention all of that except for the manuscripts that Joseph Smith had available to him.
Alma's an ancient name, except you fail to tell the audience that Alma's found in the newspaper every 7 weeks with someone dying in New York. Yeah.
Right. And I have mentioned this over and over again over the years that I've been podcasting, because people keep doing it to the point where I am no longer willing to give them any credit for doing this innocently, because they're not. They're just trying to dupe a new audience that they hope doesn't know the score. So this thing that we're talking about with Adam Clarke Bible commentary and the Joseph Smith translation is kind of the same thing, right? They will tell you that the Joseph Smith translation matches up with ancient manuscripts to which Joseph Smith did not have access, but they won't mention it's in the Adam Clarke Bible commentary that we know he was using.
Yeah, and those same apologists, I mean, they've got Terrell Givens from the inside pointing out the handful of books that he is confident Joseph Smith used in creating Mormonism. Those same apologists have one of their friends. I'll put something else here up on the screen because it'll fit perfectly right now. Those same apologists who take that stance have this close friend that they see as defending the faith. His name's Blake Ostler, and he takes the exact opposite stance of them. He says, no, I'm with Terrell Givens. He's using stuff all over the place, and I've got my own little theory that accounts for it. So in Thoughtful Saints, I put the episode we just did Wednesday night with Reformed Egyptian, with it being Charles Anton, that whole historical experience.
Can you tell everybody what Thoughtful Saints is?
It's Jacob Hansen's Facebook group, but he allows believers and critics alike.
The irony is intentional, I presume.
Yeah, they're not very thoughtful. So I put a post, and there are critics that are in here, and other folks who push back against the ideas that these guys do, and they allow the conversation. Now, you never, the believer is always going to outweigh the critic, and there's certain responses that continually come up that are very dismissive. They don't really deal with it. So I put a post up with
But
the
Blake Ostler, he's a scholar. He wouldn't give that kind of a
he would
comment, would he, Bill?
no, he wouldn't do that.
He's an academic.
Yeah, he's in academia. Yes. So I put the episode up there, and here's Blake Ostler. I'll try to make it a little bigger here for folks so that they can see it.
Blake will appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Let me get out of there. So he put stupidest, and by the way, he spelled it wrong. He'll probably, of course, tell you it was on purpose, but he spelled it wrong. Stupidest
Well,
podcast.
actually, it says stupid isn't. So it's kind of like it's the smartest.
Yeah. Nailed it. Yes. So he put stupidest podcast ever. And then I just did that, that cool thing of the hip kids today where they put the capital letters in the lowercase, and I put expansion theory because Blake
What does that mean? Because it makes me laugh just looking at it.
It's just like you're tapping Blake on the head and going, "Nice try, little boy. Good job." Yeah, try again.
To me, it looks like you're questioning his very sanity.
There is definitely something.
That's why it's so funny to me.
Yeah. If I was in her, could you play Blake Ostler for just a moment? Could you pretend to be him
Me?
for the next? Yeah. Could you just pretend to be him for the next 3 questions?
I can try.
Okay.
Oh, there's more?
No. I'm just going to ask you a question,
Oh,
and you're going to answer it as if you're Blake Ostler.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
I know how to do this.
All right, Blake. Why did you, at some point in your life, move from the way we used to understand things to a thing that you invented called the expansion theory?
Ready?
Yeah, please.
Stupidest podcast ever.
Because the moment he answers that, he's going to have to answer that he got moved when he noticed that there was 19th century material in the Book of Mormon. And the brain automatically, the moment you learn that, the normal brain goes, and none of us had the normal brain at that time, RFM. You and I didn't. But the normal brain goes,
I'm not sure I do now.
That doesn't add up. That doesn't make sense. That obviously isn't true.
Well, right. An object at rest tends to remain at rest unless moved upon by an outside force. Expansion theory.
Yes. So he's acknowledging that the rational answer is that Joseph Smith cheated, but in order to cover up the cheating, I'm going to invent a thing that allows Joseph Smith to now pull things from the 19th century and it be perfectly okay.
I could be a prophet saint too if I had enough people out there working night and day to make excuses for all the crappy things I do.
Yeah. From God's lips to the prophet's ears to the coffers of the More Good Foundation in a check written to Fair Mormon and those other folks.
Yes, Blake Ostler, I salute you.
Expansion theory.
It's really embarrassing. When you're going to say stupidest, whenever I say stupidest, and it's not often, but whenever I'm saying that, like challenging somebody else about their intelligence, I try not to misspell words horribly when I'm doing it.
I misspell words all the time. So be it. I
double and triple check because I send out a lot of those communications. I'm just saying, and I make damn sure that I'm not, subjecting myself to the obvious repost.
Yeah. 98.2% of people on the planet, when explained to them clearly what the expansion theory attempts to reconcile, would go, that's just ridiculous. He just made it up.
Yes.
Meanwhile, stupidest podcast ever.
Yes. Do we have listeners or callers or anything? And I can continue later on. I'll do a serial version of my story about Colby Townsend.
Oh, you've got more to say about
him yet, but this is all prelude and prologue to the omen coming on.
Let's take Laurel and then we'll go to what you had to say. I'm so sorry, RFM.
What are you sorry about? I'm the one who got lost in my buildup. I went somewhere else.
No, you never. It's okay. Laurel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Good. Yep, hear you great.
Yeah, excellent. This is my first time actually being here live, so
Glad
in
to
time.
have you.
I usually just use you guys to keep me company while I clean. So
is your married name Hell?
That's my married to myself name. Yes, indeed.
I love it. And I love that you finally called in and caught alive and called us in to talk to us. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah. So my claim to fame here is that my brother-in-law is Justin Griffin of the Who Killed Joseph Smith fame.
The man who needs no introduction, at least as
A
far as
man who
I'm
needs no
concerned.
introduction, and I've been dying to talk to somebody in the middle about all of this because, I have the Mormons on one side and I have the basic Snufferites on the other, and it's just a really
Clowns to the
interesting
left of me,
topic.
jokers to the right.
Exactly. And I thought y'all were so respectful and awesome when he called in and talked to you guys. And I mean, he's such a fun guy, Justin.
Mhm.
I've always loved
He
him.
is a good guy. I have a
Yeah,
great deal of respect for your brother. I just want you to know that.
I do too. Well, he's my brother-in-law. My sister's married to him. But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I've known him basically my whole life since I was a child. So yeah. But I think it's kind of my favorite part about it all is that the theory that the murder was an inside job. I'm
Mm.
like, that could totally be possible. Brigham Young was a crazy fucker. Like,
Yeah, in
Brigham
some
Young
other
was
alternate
I'm
universe where
discounting.
there's no reason or rationality. I want to say that when I was telling you I have great respect for your brother, it wasn't for his
I know,
theories. I
I
meant for
know.
his principles and what a good guy he is.
And he's just a fun person. But yeah, I did have a lot of fun watching the documentary and the whole Matrixy version of how he was shot through the door and actually was the
Okay.
inside. Yeah.
Laurel.
Yes,
Now, did you notice that his own expert disagreed with him?
I did.
Do you think
And
that's a big deal?
I think it's a massive deal.
It's a big
And
deal.
the worst part to me, which by the way, I did not know that there was a part 2 of this documentary
What? He comes back?
until you mentioned it. Because I had seen, you know why? Because they very, very heavily advertised to us as friends and family part 1 because they
Okay.
were so sure they would be right. But I wonder why they never told us about part 2.
Wait a
How
second now.
strange.
Has part 2 not come out?
Yes, it has. And part 2 is where the expert disagreed with him.
Oh, that was part 2. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
that
That's
was
the
part
one
2.
we reviewed, Bill.
And
if
it go ahead, Bill.
no, I was just gonna say if I pay a person, I go out and I get an expert.
Mhm.
And I pay the expert. I give them whatever it is, $10,000, and I say, "You're the
Oh,
expert.
it was a lot more than that, Bill.
You're the
Oh, yeah, I'm
expert.
sure.
Spend time with all of this. You know how this stuff works. I'm coming to this as an amateur
Mhm.
who's, give me your 2 cents." When the expert comes back, you have to really take into weight that the
Yeah.
expert disagreed with you. It
And
automatically makes anything you come up with less than the most rational answer.
he disagreed
Lauren,
in the nicest
Laurel,
way,
right.
which means that if he wasn't being paid, he would
Mhm.
have disagreed a lot stronger.
Right.
That was
Yes,
my impression.
exactly, and he would have.
Yeah.
We know it wouldn't have been less.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we know. It
And
wouldn't have been
the
less
one
strong if
thing
he hadn't been paid.
this is and I'm very honest with my sister that, like, I'm really happy. I think their faith in a lot of ways is healthier than the mainstream LDS faith, but I'm very honest that, like, you haven't proven anything here. And in fact, to me, the opposite has happened. And in the documentary, they have that little scene where they're like, "Well, I guess if we're wrong, we'll apologize." What? I didn't hear an apology. Like, the expert just proved them wrong. I didn't hear any apology, but they made this kind of excuse that, like, it was kind of right. He didn't say it wasn't completely wrong, and in some way they use that to justify not
Well,
apologizing.
yeah, and I just wanna make sure the audience knows because I know you know this, Laurel,
Yes,
is
please give
that
the background.
no, is that, what Justin Griffin proposes is it was an inside job.
Yes,
In
John
other words,
Taylor
John
killed
Taylor
Joseph Smith.
specifically, but basically, yeah, John
Mhm.
Taylor did it in the
Yeah.
Carthage jail with the pistol.
And they're polygamy deniers as well. So, of course, part
Yes.
of this is the
They
whole
need
Joseph
this.
Smith
Yeah.
exactly. Joseph Smith
So
never
many of
practiced
them.
polygamy. It was an inside job. Brigham Young wanted
Mhm.
polygamy, so he killed Joseph Smith, and then he started this whole thing. It's very conspiratorial. And, like, look, I respect my family members a lot, especially this family. They're awesome, so intelligent, but they are also fully anti-vax, completely anti-vax, homeschooling, all these things. So it's just like, I think that's important to keep all of that in mind, that this isn't the one conspiracy. You know?
Well, the other thing to remember, of course, intelligence has nothing to do with whether a person is
No.
conspiratorial in their thinking.
No.
I believe that's correct.
I
So,
don't
it's not
I don't
like
think
just
it
because
does.
they're smart, they're right, even though they're
Yeah.
conspiracists or or whatever. The point I was driving to, Laurel, was that the expert came back with a different opinion after looking at everything. And this guy has got experience out the yazoo. And I wanted to give it to Justin. And I think I did. I mean, credit for letting us know this. If you're a defense attorney, okay, or if you're either side in a civil suit and you go and pay for an expert and he gives you this kind of a report, the other side never knows that you had consulted with that expert.
You
He's
don't
never
bring
going to be
him
called
to
on the
court.
stand because he's going to sink your case, which is what he did for Justin.
That's
I
how I
wanted
felt.
to give Justin credit for putting him on and letting us see that and his background to give us confidence that he knows what he's talking about, which he does, and then letting him give his opinion.
Yeah.
I was shocked. That was the last thing I was expecting.
Me too.
Because that would be like me going and getting, okay, I'm defending somebody against something, and I get an expert witness that says exactly the opposite of what it is I want him to say. And I call him to the stand in the defense of the case at trial, and I let him testify to all the bad crap that's going to convict my client.
But here's the difference. He had control over court TV. And so that's why at the end, he comes to his own conclusion because there was no jury to convict. There was no judge. They were judge and jury. And so they came to their own conclusion at the end, which completely contradicted the evidence. So
well, yeah, he's got his expert, and his expert, of course, is going to say, well, yeah, I mean, if you want to try, you might want to try this or that or something else that's not going to lead to anything relevant. Otherwise, I would have done it myself because I'm the expert.
He was so generous. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And he even said, really, ultimately, there is no way to know because it's been too long.
Yes.
And so all of this is great. It's fun, but it's not going to actually ever give you the conclusion that you want.
Yes.
So
I think that was like the first thing he said when they sat down.
Yes.
If I'm remembering it correctly. It's been a while.
But you know what? I hope they do exhume the bodies. I would love to see that. I'm all on board for this.
I had someone contacting me about that, and I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think that the descendants of the family are going to think your little project is that important that they're going to agree to it. You're not going to get a judge to order it.
Yeah. And I will say, I just feel like so much money has been wasted on this, so much money on just not seeing the forest for the trees and being able to let go a little bit. Just let go a little bit. It's, maybe he just wasn't a prophet. It's okay. Maybe he wasn't even a good man. It's okay. We're all going to survive.
I was gonna add here, goes along with that, which is that I think, again, I don't mean this offensively. I don't know how you disagree with someone when you think that they're seeing an irrational world and you think you're seeing it rationally.
It's hard. Yeah.
Right. So I think he's duped. I think him and that entire group is weighting the evidence in an incorrect way. And because they need a belief to be true, they can't come to terms with the way in which they weigh the evidence. Right.
Yeah.
But I look at him and he's arguing in favor of something other than what even the expert says. And I see Fair Mormon doing the same thing.
Right. Where
they are arguing for the less than most rational answer. And I'll at least say that Justin and that whole group of the polygamy deniers, it seemed to me to be a group that's sincere. Like they really do believe it.
I know my sister is sincere. I know.
I see the Fair Mormon folks and I can tell by the way they carry out their business.
Yep.
It's demonstrable that theirs is an ego trying to hide the truth from people.
They know the truth and they're actively lying about it. Right.
Yep.
Whereas I think, I agree with you. The polygamy deniers, they have a sincere desire and a sincere belief that they will come to this conclusion, that the evidence will point to this, but they're like not there yet, But I think Justin and my sister have always been evolutionary about their faith, and they've always had different ideas. I know at one point they had the idea that in the three kingdoms, we could actually progress still, because they were like, that's just not God's nature, like the Mormon God, that's not his nature to just stop your progression. And so they were, they've evolved a lot. And I still have hope that they can continue to evolve. I think one complicating factor is I think Justin's sort of had the desire to be in more positions of leadership, as often might be the case for men in the church. And I think when he did not get those opportunities, that was a bit of a faith shaker for him. And he is now in a position where he is kind of a leader, and I think he's happier there. And I don't really know if that's a good thing or not. I have more thoughts I could say, but I do think that a lot of people in this group are sincere, and that in some ways, the women can give blessings. There's more autonomy. There is less judgment
Wait a
from the
second.
queer community.
Wait a second.
Oh yeah, the women can give blessings.
No. I'm so sorry. Are you now
yeah.
talking about being part of the snuffer community?
You know what? I don't think that they are actually the Snuff-Right community, but they're
See?
so secretive. I think this is Doctrines of Christ is what it is.
Snuff-Right adjacent?
Snuff-Right adjacent. Yep.
Super secret snufferism?
Very similar. And Denver has visited their group. I know.
He has? Did he call them to repentance?
No, I think that they're all cozy. I think Denver Snuffer's actually a good guy.
It's like if you're a reorganite,
yeah,
community of Christ, and you're like, Book of Mormon, believe it, don't believe it, we can still go to church together.
Well, they do believe the Book of Mormon, but
yeah. I was just using a different
Phil
example.
Davis kind of had his sort of scandal and everything.
Yeah, something about disrobing, in flagranto delicto.
I believe that happened live on camera after a church meeting. So yeah.
Thank goodness
and
it was
then
after the
there
meeting.
was a new doctrine, of course, released immediately after that, because what else would God do after
What was that? The doctrine of the holy pee-pee?
Yes, it was indeed. Anyway, I kind of feel like Justin was sort of the next level down to be leader, and like they claim there's no leader, whatever, but it's impossible to have.
There will be within a generation. Every high demand fundamentalist religion has leaders.
That's what I think, because everybody, they crave it too, right? Anyway, at least they're anti-polygamist and not pro-polygamist, but even that changes sometimes. So I guess we'll see.
When Snuffer dies, go ahead, Arpa.
Ms. Hell.
Yes.
Why are you calling us tonight?
I just wanted to chat. I've been listening to the show.
I'm not trying to get you off the show.
Please get me off the show.
I'm not trying to. But I was just wondering if there was some reason that you would.
No, I wanted to talk about Doctrines of Christ and this group. And
so the name of the group is Doctrines of Christ.
That's Phil's group. Again, they always like to say we don't have
Phil
leaders,
Davis.
we have teachers.
Phil Davis?
Yeah. So that was Phil Davis's group that my brother-in-law, my sister and brother-in-law, they upped and moved to a farm in Manti. This group is very prevalent in Manti. They're fully convinced that end of the world is imminent. So they are doing the farm and they're prepping. So yeah.
Something to their favor. Now, again, this only is true for the first generation of people who split off into a faith. Once it's the children, they're going to believe it as if that's their worldview. Mm-hmm. But for the parents who convert to it, who leave main branch Mormonism and go over, and so to put Justin sort of in this boat, is that to their credit, they all realized that something about Mormonism that they perceived as happening after Joseph Smith wasn't tolerable.
Correct.
Something drove them to the question to figure out where did it change and why did it go wrong?
Yeah.
So they're figuring out the answer to that, which means they've already challenged the truthfulness of Mormonism. And
90%. They're 90% there. And we agree.
Yeah, they're one more question away.
That's what I say. And I'm really straightforward with Rebecca about that like what is it that's keeping you from pulling this, like from letting go of this one last piece of faith?
Yes.
Why is it just Brigham and on that was the problem?
Right.
But she doesn't necessarily, she's actually open to the idea that Joseph was fallible. And for her, I think it's more of an organic, he was a teacher, he was a good, he was inspired, but it doesn't mean that he's necessarily the prophet, the one prophet,
Ask her a question. Ask her,
please,
if she were to discover that that's true, that Joseph Smith had gone astray later in life, would she still want to hold the view that he was called of God in the beginning and he just became a fallen prophet? Because that's usually the next tier. If someone's trying to hang on, that's the next tier they'll move to. They would almost have to deal with Joseph Smith's entire life, including his childhood, and wrestle with the fact that he's been a scam artist since he was 13 years old.
That's what I don't get, is that it's also obviously, it's the forest for the trees. It is right there in front of you.
Yeah.
It's an evolution of what he was doing as a child, as a kid, as a teenager. So I have told her these things. I think the problem is that
she's Rebecca, by the way, Laurel?
Justin's wife.
Okay. Rebecca is Justin's wife that you're talking
my sister.
to. Your sister. Got it. Thank you.
So we're more likely to have these conversations, and we've had very long, stressful text conversations. And I feel like I'm one of the only family members who can hold my own with her, because all of the other ones, besides one who's also ex-Mormon but just doesn't care anymore about this stuff, all the other ones are so Mormon that they get stuck in classic Mormonism.
Mhm.
Whereas I know my shit, so I can like fight her on it. And I just feel like she has never proven anything to me, or like even brought up anything that was like, yeah, that's a good point. It's not really. Yeah.
Laura, can I tell you the definition of an ideologue?
Yes, you may.
You know what an ideologue is, right, Bill?
No. Do I hear that term in politics?
Frequently, yeah. An ideologue is but it doesn't have to be politics. An ideologue is a person who will believe whatever it is they believe in spite of the evidence against that proposition.
What's a demagogue?
Jacob Hansen.
That's one about someone who preaches. That's preaching.
Okay.
A demagogue is usually considered to be bad preaching, as opposed to, I don't know, preaching, which is good preaching.
I have to ask, have you read All the King's Men? Because
actually.
I actually wanted to talk to you about
Robert
that.
Penn Warren?
Yeah.
Robert Penn Warren?
Beautiful writing.
I wrote some of those.
The way you talk about literature, I just know that's all up your alley.
Oh, sorry. I wrote some of the passages from that book down here in my little book of passages.
Amazing.
But I probably can't find it right now because there's too many.
Yes, there is one particular passage when he's sitting in the car and the rain is falling. It's at the beginning of a chapter. I was on the BYU Idaho campus on a bench reading that when it felt like it changed my life. Anyway.
Really? Tell me about that.
Are there other callers? I'm going to let.
Can you tell us about that, Laurel?
About what?
This is great. Your conversation is phenomenal. Keep it going.
Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating when I say it changed my life, but like I just still feel the poignancy of that passage. It's beautiful.
What was it about?
And he's talking about, it's in the first person, and he's talking about how you have these different selves, and sometimes you'll look back on this self almost as if you're talking to that person as a different person, or observing that life, that piece of life as a different life. I think I'm thinking of the right passage. And I just really loved that. And especially now that I've left the church and have a completely different life, it almost feels like the person I was in the church, if I read my journals, it literally feels like it's not the same person. And I think at the time I never would have known this much change would happen in my life, but I love to look back and be like, I can hug that little child. I can observe this teenager going through what they're going through, but it's like almost a different self completely. And there's something sad, but also beautiful about that. I have to.
Okay, I got one
for you. Did you get it? Okay, let's hear it.
I found several, but I don't know that it's the one you were looking at. This is actually from.
These are in your notebook? I'm amazed. I mean, I should not be amazed. It's you, RFM. Yeah. Of course you have. Of course. Yeah.
My table's needed as I write it down.
Okay, let's hear it.
That's actually on the first page.
He never fails to impress, does he?
No, never.
No, he is.
Hang on, let me get out of it.
Can you see that? Sense of the word.
My table's needed as I write it down.
Can we hear it?
You are an erudite.
Oh shit! I just lost it. Well, that was really smart of me.
But you'll find it again because it's you.
Yeah, I just need to whip out my seer stone. It wasn't too far back.
I will find the passage and I'll send it to you guys, though.
He loves this, by the way. But to the audience, he's fucking brilliant, and he writes shit down, and he's got all these
Writing things down is not hard. I've been doing that.
Keeping up
since
with
grade
him is
school.
difficult.
Here,
This
let me
show
see
is
if I can read this here.
Fourth
I
wall
think
there
this is
for a
going to be
moment.
really, really nice. Usually it impacts me a lot if I'm going to write it down, right?
Can I ask, RFM, do you actually have a photographic memory?
No.
Well,
No,
that's.
I have to work very
Have you
hard
asked
for
that,
anything I
Bill? You
remember.
have,
What are you
haven't you?
talking about, Bill?
100
I don't even
times.
know what you're doing now.
100 times I've told him, I don't care what you say. I don't believe it. I think you have a photographic memory. And
You're acting like
RFM,
there's feeding time at the zoo.
It's just like,
RFM, he walks this line of bullshitting you and telling you the truth in
not even true.
personal conversation when joking or,
my
giving
When I'm
favorite.
lying, I am being the
Yes.
most honest.
I always catch your jokes, RFM, and it's so funny to me when
Oh,
no one else does.
thank
And you're
you
just
so
like,
much.
he. Like,
Well, this is terrible. I hope I can read this thing because I intentionally dim everything down here because Mormonism After Freaking Dark. At first, it was, as I have said, rather. Oh, man.
an honest liar. Nice.
Hang on a second here. Let me see if
That's
I
so
can. I'll
true.
get something shorter because that's too long, especially in my handwriting. And I try and slow down, right? Let's see. A man's virtue may be but the defect of his desire. A man's virtue may be but the defect of his desire, as his crime may be but a function of his virtue. In the context, it made a lot more sense. But the thing is, a man's
No,
virtue, you get that may be the defect of his desire?
And wait, you have. I think the whole thing. You have to read both lines together.
As his crime may be but a function of his virtue.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's also very much giving Les Mis,
Okay, I'm going to do this one, all right? Let me do this one, okay? Because I really like this thing. It's just beautiful. But if anything is certain, it is that no story is ever over.
Mm.
For the story which we think is over is only a chapter in a story, which will not be over. And it isn't the game that is over. It is just an inning. And that game has a lot more than 9 innings.
Wow.
When the game stops, it will be called on accident. No, excuse me. When the game stops, it will be called on account of darkness. But it is a long day.
Oh, I have chills. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That was page 534. Is that true? That's a long freaking book, if that's true.
It's true. Is
it that long?
It's a very long freaking book.
Did you see the movie with Broderick Crawford?
I actually, honestly, the book was so sacred to me. It was one of those things where I couldn't watch a movie of it,
Well, let me tell you, the book is definitely better.
Okay.
The movie, I think, got an Academy Award. I think, did Crawford get Academy Award for Best Actor?
I'm almost positive that All the
movie.
King's Men won an Academy Award, at least.
Yeah,
Maybe even
movie.
Best Picture. I don't know.
Yeah. And I just found it I don't know. The amazing thing, Laurel, is that these books, anybody out there can do what I do if you want. I mean, you don't have to, and nobody's forcing you. You could go 2 doors down to the discount bookstore, and you can get The Riches of Heaven marked down to $3.50 for a paperback.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
But where do I get my attention back? That's the problem. I need it back.
Your attention?
My attention span.
No attention for a book anymore.
You get it, Bill. You do.
Yeah, I gotta listen. It's got to be a podcast. You can go 3 hours if it's a good podcast, but I got to learn all the stuff in that 3 hours.
By the way, I just have to say, every time you guys are like, we're going way too long, it's never too long. I'm always like, can you give me one more hour? One more hour. So
You're very, very kind, but I've heard different from other people.
I assumed so. I was like, I'm sure they've gotten
reel it back. Reel it back.
No pun intended.
No, actually it wasn't, but very good.
I did want to ask you.
What kind of red wine are you having? Is that red wine?
It is.
What kind?
Zinfandel.
Very good.
A very good wine. I'm from wine country in California.
Nice. It is a strange thing. Going back to what you called about the polygamy deniers.
Yeah.
It all hinges on whether Joseph Smith was a polygamist or not. And there's no space to evaluate at this point any of the other problems with who he is. Like there's no room for that.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem is, and I've said this to my sister, I was like, I just saw it for what it was eventually. Like, I really don't even care about this issue that much. Like, yes, reading the girls' journals was tragic to
Yeah.
me. And I saw
Yes.
evidence of grooming, very clear.
Mm.
And I've studied so much about cults and sexual abuse and all kinds of things now that I very clearly recognize the patterns. And so the fact that he married older women wasn't because it wasn't about sex, but because it was about sex and he needed them to groom young girls.
Mm.
Facts. I mean, so yeah, all of that mattered, but I was like, that is not the only issue, which it has become for them. I'm like, there's so much more here to prove what a scoundrel he was, but more so that he wasn't led by God. And
By
that's
the
all that
way,
it comes to. Yeah.
every non-Mormon and let me say it differently. Every believer, apologist, and pedophiles, those are the only two people. The Mormon apologists and pedophiles are the only two groups.
Pedophile, technically. I'm just kidding.
Pedophile. Yes, I've been criticized for that before.
No,
but
no, no. I'm just kidding because I always do this on Reddit, and people love to downvote me because they're like, "You're defending Joseph Smith," and
it's
I'm like, "Y'all say you care about
yeah.
truth, whatever."
I get that there's a right word to use, but in
Yeah,
order to convey an idea to a collective audience and have them walk away
right.
instantly knowing what you're talking about, pedophiles is
Totally.
the right word.
I
And
agree. I agree.
so only the pedophiles and the Mormon apologists take that data and make it work. Everyone else says
Everyone
that's
else sees
grooming.
it. They see
Everyone
it
else
for
says
what
that's
it is.
grooming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, I listened to a podcast from that was really, really fascinating about pedophilia. This is not a fun topic, but the point is that um, what we should be focusing on is not somebody's mental illness, but the actions they have taken. And that is the problem. Like, he is a predator. It doesn't matter, like, you can put all kinds of labels on it, but like, his predation is the problem here. And there is no denying that happened. Like, there is no denying that happened. Yeah.
Right. And too often, you're right, with the labels we put on, like pedophilia,
Mhm.
what we do is we leave it open for the opposition to make the argument
Yes.
about the correct term instead of what really happened.
I know, it's a distraction. It's a
Yeah.
deflection. But I do agree with Bill that, like, it's teenagers are children and it's important to get that point across. And, yeah. And it leaves an impression for people to go research more. So,
What I always want to know from people who believe these crazy ass theories, to put it mildly, is where was God in all this? I mean, what kind of Joseph Smith is it that you must create in order to make him so stupid that he didn't even know all this shit was going down right behind his back? And not only is he stupid, he's completely without any kind of inspiration, which leads us
Mhm.
to where was God in all this?
Well, they love to blame God, as you know, which is offensive for all the God believers.
Are you
Not
one?
me. I am not one.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you
Not
might.
even slightly.
You seemed to really feel for them. So
I'm like
you're
more kind of in this atmospheric you have behind you in the stars.
Uh,
Your
I'm sorry.
background is
Oh, the
stars.
background. Isn't it
Yeah.
wonderful?
It's lovely. Yeah. That's
What
what my
happened to that
skies look
jazz
like.
music we used to have, Bill?
yeah, it started to be an audio issue where when the jazz music was playing, you were breaking up and it was breaking up, and folks were complaining.
That's
I
too
get
bad because it's
the
really
jazz
relaxing.
song is stuck in my head all day, every day. So
Dun, dun,
congratulations.
dun, 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 dun.
It's
Do you
very
feel
good.
like your sister's trying to convert you?
Yeah, sometimes. Yes. And because I think so, she's trying to convert both of us, both sides of the family, the Mormon side and the ex-Mormon side, because she's so sure that the only reason we left is that we are calling Joseph Smith a rogue. What do we call him? Like a bad guy.
Beware of rogues.
Beware.
um, and she just doesn't realize that it is a shelf breaking. I've been putting things on this shelf for decades,
Hmm.
and at some point the illusion shatters. And I have told her this, and I think she gets it now. We've kind of tried to stop talking about these things because we end up arguing,
Yeah.
and then I end up arguing with my other sister about the other side of it. So
Oh,
we just had the feminism talk, and it started out so innocuous. I don't know how to stop my impulses to drop little nuggets here and there, but I have to stop. I just have to stop doing
Are
it.
we talking about General Conference and Elder
Yes.
Neil Anderson's
Yes,
talk?
we are. We are talking of, well, no, we're not talking about Neil's talk. I haven't even broached that because I was talking about what's his name, who said the things about the women doing the work, all the heavy lifting and sitting in the pews. But
Oh, Jared Halverson.
yes.
Jared Halverson.
Yeah.
What's your experience with that? What's been going on with you and your sisters there?
Well, I saw that and I was in shock and laughing. And I was like, wow, this is literally the first time someone in the church hasn't gaslit me about the sexism in the church. The first time. And so I was like, I had to send it to my sister because I had to.
Which
Of
one?
course. This is a different sister. She's right above me. So we're closer.
What is she, a Catholic?
I'm Mormon. We have, there's 8 of us. Okay. There's 8 of us. It's hard to keep track of. 4 girls.
Okay, but this is a different sister.
Different sister. Yeah. And no, my other sister wouldn't care about feminism. Anyway, so I just told her, I'm just dropping this. This is why, I'm sure when you hear it, you'll understand what's problematic about it. And I'm just telling you, this is why a lot of women are leaving the church. And unless you want to be in a church of all men, which who wants to do that? Like, this is the inevitable outcome.
So this is a faithful sister.
Yeah. Yes. Very faithful.
What happened?
And but she's come around, and we kind of made up after I had left the church, and we had a few tense years, and so we are pretty cool. But my problem is I can't stop trying to save her from Mormonism. But anyway, she had no problem with it, which led to me telling her why she should have a problem with it, and then in the end, it was messy. It got messy.
And pretty soon you're having a toothpaste fight.
Yep. And you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube once it's come out.
You can't.
So is she still mad at you?
We ended pretty chill. I was like, I'm going to stop talking to you about the church. She was like, yeah, I'm fine if we drop this. And that was where it ended.
Okay. Wow. So did you share it with anybody else?
No, I talked to other ex-Mormons about it, but that's about it. Okay. I'm actually pretty, I keep very close tabs on the current affairs of the church because it's interesting to me. And my viewpoint is that I've done my healing. I've done my EMDR. I am living my best life, but I want to be able to hold my own. If they ever come at me, I will never not be able to argue my point with them.
Were you this way when you were a Mormon defending the church?
That's who trained me to be this way. Yeah.
Do you reside in Utah, Laurel?
I'm in New Hampshire now.
New Hampshire. Were you in Utah originally?
And then I bought a little house on a river, and
You moved recently?
So fucking happy.
Yeah. You moved recently?
2 years ago.
Yeah.
But I left the church about 8 years ago. It's like I'm losing time. It's amazing. That's great.
I just want to note this.
Wow, that sounds idyllic.
By the way, kick me off anytime you want. I will be totally chill about it.
Yeah, I'll let RFM decide when that is.
Oh, good. Make me the execution.
Yeah. But I'll just say this before you go.
Yeah.
RFM and I have talked behind the scenes that it might be nice from time to time to have a guest on the show. Yeah. And I just thought how we carried a conversation, the three of us, was really just
so fun.
Really synchronicity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you would put if you don't mind, yep, you've answered it. Give me the number. And maybe for a future episode, we can put some of our guests on the show. I don't know what you think about that, RFM, but I think it would be a fun thing if she.
I would love to.
I'm glad we're talking about the future of the show on live TV. That's all.
Yeah. I'm just we've talked about.
In the meantime, your mission is to dig up all the dirt you can on Justin. Okay.
Done. No.
And then bring it back.
Also, I would love for you guys to, because you haven't interviewed him yet, have you? He just called in the one time.
We were talking about him instead of to him. I had actually called him on the phone. And what you told me tonight,
I want you guys to have him and maybe Rebecca on. I think it'd be fascinating. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, because it made sense with what you told me about him and his telling me that he had Denver Snuffer over to his house.
Yeah.
And that But that he didn't necessarily agree with everything that Denver Snuffer said.
Yeah, which I think is cool. I feel like,
By the way, that's what everybody who believes everything that Denver Snuffer says is I don't believe everything that Denver Snuffer says. And say that 3 times fast.
I don't believe everything that Denver Snuffer says. That was once.
And they believe everything then.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, so I had talked.
No, I hope they're all having a good time. I think it's a good community. I think they have a good community. So
I just want you to know, Laurel, that Justin declined coming on the show when I invited him.
okay, all right.
And then later on, we went ahead and we did the show about
and he
his
called
expert
in.
witness.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That's the definition of an ideologue. Thankfully, we're getting back to it. Is when you pay thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to have a freaking legitimate expert review the evidence and give you his opinion, and you ignore it and say, no, thanks. I'm going to keep believing what I believe.
I love it. And Molly, I love Lake Winnipesaukee, and I love What About Bob, and I just think it's so cool. I live so close.
I'm sailing. I'll jump in then. I'll let you go so RFM doesn't have to do it. And really appreciate the time talking to you.
Yeah, really nice to talk to you.
Come in more often.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye. Now, if anything happens to Laurel, we all know that John Taylor did it.
Yeah. Kobe Townsend. Let's spend another minute or two there, giving you a chance to share your thoughts there, and then we'll do the phone call after that.
Okay, Colby. So anyway, here's what happens, okay, is that I had read this article that talks about the without a cause, right? Not being in the earliest manuscripts, and but being present or being absent. This is one of those reverse ones. It's absent. It was absent in the earliest manuscripts. It's absent in the JST. It's absent in 3rd Nephi, Matthew, or Sermon on the Mount, the one in 3rd Nephi. And this was an evidence for the Book of Mormon. However, a number of years ago, it could be 15 or 20 by now, in Dialogue, an important article was written, I think it was by Huggins, and showing that actually that was referenced in the, okay, I think I did get this far. That change was referenced in the commentary, in the Adam Clark Bible commentary. So the problem is that 3rd Nephi is in the Book of Mormon, right? The JST is the JST, which is after the Book of Mormon is translated.
Sometime later.
But it's in both of them. And so all I said was what seemed to me the obvious connection was that not only has Joseph Smith apparently and demonstratedly used the Adam Clark Bible commentary in his Joseph Smith translation, it looks like he probably already did the same thing with the Book of Mormon before.
Mm-hmm. You noticed.
And I said that,
okay,
on the podcast. And I may also have said something about the fact that, see, I don't have a Adam Clark Bible commentary, but I know somebody who does. And so I gave him a call. That was Brian Hauglid. And this is years ago. This is 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm.
And I'm finding out and talking to him, and he's the one I talked to find out that there was no Apocrypha in the Adam Clark Bible commentary, thus possibly explaining why there's no JST of the Apocrypha. And there's even a section in the Doctrine and Covenant, section 91, that tells Joseph Smith, don't translate the Apocrypha because you don't have any Adam Clark Bible commentary, dummy. Or words to that effect. So we got the Adam Clark Bible commentary. Now, I have said these things, and also that I thought that Joseph Smith probably, we know he had a Bible with him, but I also found out from Brian Hauglid that the Bible is incorporated in the the Adam Clark Bible commentary. It's the Bible throughout and the commentary below. So why does Joseph Smith need an extra Bible when we basically know, for crying out loud, that he had a Bible with him and he opened it and he read out of it and changed little pieces every here and there to the scribe? We know that. So if he's got a Bible, why not just do the Bible that's in the commentary? He's got the commentary immediately below it, and he doesn't have to have 2 books that he's looking back and forth on. It seems simple. So
yes. But if he's going to make changes, it makes more sense to have the cheat codes next to the book you're using, right? Adam Clark is who's giving him the inspiration to go, hey, everybody, I'm a prophet. I'm going to fix some things. Watch this. And all he's doing is copying the fixes that someone else gave.
Right, because what in these cases, what Adam Clark is doing is saying, or in some of these cases. What Adam Clark is saying is that this is the way it was originally. And the early manuscripts reflect this. And it's wrong the way it is in the Bible today. In fact, in the Bible that's right above these comments on this very page, because there's a footnote there, right? And so that's what it goes to. So that's wrong. It should be changed. And in many cases, Joseph Smith changed it. And so that was one of them. So having said all of that,
Yeah.
I don't even know who Colby Townsend is when I say this.
Mhm.
And I'm not pursuing it. But Colby Townsend doesn't hear me say it. But somebody who knows Colby Townsend hears me say it. And that somebody tells Colby Townsend.
Yeah.
Because unbeknownst to me and the vast majority of humankind on the planet, Colby Townsend is working furiously on a research paper on that very issue.
Yeah. He's digging into it. Yeah.
Yes. And I just broadcasted it.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you really quickly, if you're a scholar, a researcher, I'll tell you my experience, okay? And we'll see if it's that different from Colby's or anybody else's. Step one, this is after you kind of buried yourself in stuff and you have a familiarity with the stuff that you have to have in your field, okay? So whatever it is, okay, inspiration strikes. And you see something that you've never seen before. You made a connection.
You had a new
Okay,
thought.
so that's the initial thing, the inspiration. The second thing is doubting yourself and thinking, am I imagining this or is this really here? And then doing whatever it is you need to do to convince yourself. And it doesn't always pass that test. Sometimes it will just be a shadow. Like the other night upon the stair, I saw a man who wasn't there.
Mm.
And sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. And then you start getting excited because now you're starting to think you really found something. And that something could be important. And then that excitement gets coupled with terror. Because the terror is that you're not the first person to have discovered this.
Mm.
And that someone else has already discovered it and published on it, and you just didn't know it. So that's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it will happen from time to time. And it wasn't that long ago it had been published on. It was only a few years before I'd made my independent discovery. But somebody else had published on it in some kind of Bible journal. But regardless, that can happen. And during that time period, what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep it as secret as possible in order to not let somebody get the idea, right? So that they can beat you to the publication date, which is the race. That's the ribbon across the finish line that you're racing toward. And yet you've got all these other projects you're doing. And apparently, Colby, it took like 6 years. It took forever because all of my recollection is this. And if Colby doesn't comment, then it's solid. I think this is what happened. Is that I get a call out of the blue from Colby Townsend. He introduces himself to me. He says, what the hell are you doing? Blabbing my idea out on the public airwaves. Knock it off, numbskull. And it took me a while it didn't take me that long to realize. He wasn't quite that direct and he was a little more polite. And that he'd been working on this thing. And okay. Well, when you're done with this, why don't you come on Mormonism Live? Because we've been on the air for, about 5 years now. Going on 5 years. I think it was less than that. And less than that ago. Anyway, and I would call him back periodically, because he told me, quite understandably, that he didn't want to go on anybody's podcast until he'd actually published the paper. Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. But I want him to come on our show so he could talk about it right after he published. He said, okay. He got busy. I understand. I'm not blaming him. I'm just explaining what happened here, which was so interesting because then all of a sudden, finally, the paper gets published after this interminable wait. I'm sure it was much more interminable for Colby to have to wait that long. But finally, it got published and hoorah. And now we get to talk about it.
It is it's that next step, right? Like you think that we're at a point, the internet's here, almost everything's out there. The church is still holding some things back that it says it's not hiding, but it doesn't want you to see them.
And that's the really good stuff.
But for the most part, the stuff is out there. And, people get to look at it and make up
Mhm.
their mind if they're willing to go looking for it and ask questions about it. I'll just note, just as a little side story, and I can say this quickly, but during an experience, I learned for the first time, brand new thought, right? When you see the thing that you'd never seen before and you don't think anyone else maybe has seen it, and you wonder. I learned the stoned ape theory. Terence McKenna, and I won't spend time explaining that here, but those who know. So when I woke up,
Apparently, I've yet to learn that theory.
yeah, when I woke up the next morning, I was excited because I had learned something in an experience that I thought was like, wow, that's pretty profound. I went looking, and there was a guy named Terence McKenna who had come up with this in like the 1960s or something.
Mm.
Yeah, the idea is that primitive species of ours encountered psychedelic substances, and that's what opened their mind to the possibility of seeing the world from a new way. And it's where the human brain's consciousness developed at a faster pace over the course of like 1.7 million years. Anyway, there's that.
I think people who use controlled substances have no end of ways to lionize the virtues of said controlled substances.
I don't know what you just said, but I'm gonna laugh at it. All right, let's go to the phone lines. We've got I think this might be a Thomas. And by the way, Thomas is going to ask about General Conference. So when this call is over, let's give you a second to talk about these 5 episodes you just put out.
Yes.
And the work involved with General Conference. So
Yes, it was.
So Thomas, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Well, hear you loud and clear, my friend. Go ahead. You're on Mormonism After Dark.
Well, first time ever calling, so I hope I don't ramble.
You're
love
doing
watching.
fine, Thomas. Thomas, I have a
listening.
question for you. I have one question for you, okay?
Okay.
Where were you the first time I appeared?
Where was I the first time you appeared?
It's an Easter joke.
I don't know.
I'll give
It's
you
a
a
little
tip.
Easter humor.
Yeah, I'll give you a tip. Don't doubt his question. Just answer it.
What? You've never heard this before? Nobody's ever made this gag with you? Doubting Thomas?
No.
Doubting Thomas?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm full of doubts. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, this is multiple doubts, Thomas, on the phone right now.
You're appropriately named then.
Yeah.
What's your first doubt, Thomas?
Exactly. Well, no, so I listened, or I'm in the throes of listening to your General Conference breakdowns. I kind of started in an unorthodox order, so I'm on the last one right now, and love it so far. So just some back history. I obviously I'm still a member, but I guess I'm inactive. Don't believe. I was a member of the bishopric, a member of the High Council. I'm not saying that to toot a horn by any means, but I was somebody that really loved reading the scriptures, and so I've pursued now trying to get a master's in theology because I love the subject matter that much.
So interesting, isn't it?
From where?
So I'm here in San Antonio, Texas. Probably outing myself, but I don't care. And I'm just going to a local Baptist school called Wayland Baptist. So it's hard because they're a conservative school. So when I talk about the scholarship behind, New Testament studies, Old Testament studies, when you learn the history of how the New Testament came to be, that's really what shook my faith. If a guy can raised from the dead 2,000 years ago, then a guy in upper state New York can look at a rock in a hat and translate.
Yes,
but
it's really
once
you accept the first incredible, and I'm using that in its technical sense of unbelievable. Once you believe the first incredible thing, then the rest can follow naturally.
Right. And so as I'm listening to your podcast, I appreciated when you brought up, Jesus Christ or Jesus, Yeshua, wasn't Jesus Christ, but Yeshua, if he even existed. I'm not saying he didn't, but, there's doubters out there, mythicists, if you will. But I appreciated when you said that he was a Pharisee. And And then you said that he was, speaking against his fellow Pharisees, right?
His own
I
church's leaders.
didn't do
Yes.
that. His own church leaders, right? I didn't
That's by the way,
disagree with
that's the
that,
message.
obviously.
That's the message that was intended. Jesus said, question your church leaders. That was the prevailing theme from the fucking beginning of the New Testament to the very end. Question your church leaders.
Right, sure. And I only, answer or respond to that with what may sound like doubt because one, my name's Thomas, and two, I question really what he did in the first place. I don't know that I trust the Gospels that he said these certain things. He very well could have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he did. I don't know that we'll ever know that he did. But, I love the caller who you were speaking to before me and talking about Denver Snuffer. And I've always questioned, as I've learned about him and as I've learned about Paul, I thought, Paul hated the 12 apostles. He said that he saw Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He speaks to the Galatians saying, you should listen to me, not these 12,
right,
who are telling the Galatians obey the law. And it's like, nobody questions Paul because they don't read the scriptures, the Mormons being that, but if you tell them Denver Snuffer sees Jesus and he's saying that the 12 are fallen, he's an apostate. It's just, it's mind-boggling to me, the lack of, comprehension. And I get it. Not everyone is like me that has read the Book of Mormon so many times, the New Testament, the Old Testament. Very rare people want to go get a master's degree in it.
It's true, but something compels some of us.
They like what they feel and they move on.
But something compels some of us to want to learn this stuff. Because I know the same feeling. I have the same compulsion as you.
That's why I identify with you, and I love listening to you. I also get a lot of your references. I don't get all of them, but I love your references. They're fantastic. And so that's really all I wanted to call in and say was I'm enjoying listening to you all. I love the conversation. I put out a video, not a video. I didn't put out a video, but I put a video because I would love to go on to Mormon stories and tell my story. I don't think it's the most interesting, but I think I have a story. I think everybody has a story.
Yeah.
And so but I just love talking about it. And it's a lonely world when you don't have anybody to talk to. So I'm grateful for the community. Yeah. And I'm grateful that I could call in and actually speak to you too.
Yeah.
And hopefully maybe I can do it again and we can have a longer conversation in the future.
I'll just say this. If you shoot an email to Mormon Discussions with an S on the end, podcast with an S on the end at gmail.com, I'd love if you thought there could be an episode put together in one of our platforms where we could talk about like the most interesting things that you've learned that most people in this community, even those of us in the post or ex-Mormon community who have thought about these things and read these books. I've read Reza Aslan, Zealot, I've read Bart Ehrman. Folks in the audience will have done that too. RFM's read that stuff. Would
and
you
read the Stoned Ape.
And the Stoned Ape theory. Would you, if you email us and say, hey, these are really 10 things that I've sort of learned along the way that I think would be really interesting to the audience, I'd love to consider putting an episode together for something.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, email me.
Okay, we'll do. I'll send you something. Right. Thank you both. I really appreciate all you do.
Take it easy. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks, Thomas. I feel like I'm along for the ride tonight, Mr. Reel.
I'm so sorry. I'm not trying
to. Okay. I love watching you in action.
Okay. I didn't know if that would be for Mormonism Live or Mormon Discussion or maybe Almost Awakened for the hell I care,
Yes.
I'll just note this. Let the dead bury their dead, right? Jesus Christ telling you to essentially come follow me. Don't worry about
Yes.
Don't worry about that. I'm just telling you.
Me?
That's bullshit. No, you in the audience. I'm telling you in the audience.
I thought you were telling me let the dead bury their dead.
No, bullshit. Go to the funeral. It's your mother. It's your father.
Right.
Don't let a religion manipulate you into thinking that you're not supposed to go to the funeral of your loved one. That's just bullshit. And the moment you learn that it was a mythological narrative perpetuated by men who were deceiving you and withholding information from you, you are going to regret not going to your mother or father's funeral. My point being is that Jesus didn't say everything right. Some of that shit was just bullshit.
And he didn't say everything he said.
No. And so whether he said that or not, that's bullshit. Go to the funeral.
And of course, that puts me in mind of many general conferences ago, by which I mean within 10 years, where there was a general authority, from China, who's talking about his wife.
I just want to note, the only person sad is you. You're feeling sad for me. I'm not sad. Life is good. Anyway, thank you, Mercury Soul. Go ahead, Arthur.
17. That's a cool name, though. Mercury Soul 17.
Yeah. Couldn't be 16 and 18 were taken.
Yeah, what was I talking about now before the Mercury Soul 17 interruption?
I don't know. You have to.
You're going to let the Mercury Soul win on this one?
No, I'm not. It had something to do. I don't know. You're going to have to fill it in.
Okay, I got nothing.
Well, tell us about the preparation for General Conference. So he was asking about General Conference. You put out 5 episodes in the last week. Say something about that project.
Oh my gosh, General Conference. That is the hardest weekend of all. This was the most unkindest weekend of all. Yeah, it's terrible. And it comes at you, and it's lumbering, and it's big, and it hates everything to do with Christmas. That's General Conference for you. It takes up the whole weekend. And then the first time I did this, which was now 2 years ago, I didn't want to do it. In fact, I didn't want to commit to it because then people would expect me to do it and to watch all the shows. And as of that point, I know we'd done live stuff, but I had done live stuff by myself, which is its own kind of trepidation for me. So we went ahead. I tried it. I'll go ahead and I'll commit to it. I went and I did it. It was tough, but people seemed to like it. The next 6 months later, I don't want to do it again. And I'm thinking, actually, Wendy is saying, well, did people like it last time? In other words, is this something that is worth your putting in that kind of an effort over a full weekend? And I went and looked back, and it was like all of them were over 10,000 views, which is pretty good for me. And so let's do it again. So we did it again. And so we've been doing it every 6 months now. And I can't remember how long, maybe 5 times, maybe 6 times, which would be 3 years. And just I had a much better time. And I felt like this inspiration came to me the night before to, instead of just making it me talking about General Conference, to make it something more, to make it into like a telethon. Because I was thinking, I have to go all day. I have to stay up into the night. I have to get up the next morning, and I don't even know what Lauren Diaz is talking about, but maybe you can tell me in a second when I get done with this so I don't lose my track. And I have to go the rest of the day on Sunday, right up until the evening, just like with the Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon used to be, which it was a big part of my childhood. And I thought, well, look, I'll do this, and I'll just say, I'll try and ring up donations, right? Because that's what they're trying to do, is getting the donations for the Labor Day Telethon, and just try and do it that way, just try and have a little bit more fun with it in that way. That seemed to make it go a little bit faster for me. Also, even though it was deathly boring again this year, as it has been for the past 195 years, even though it was deathly boring for me this year, there was actually enough crazy stuff that was said to make it interesting for me. And even though it's a labor of love for you, if not for the actual conference itself. But I also, a byproduct of it is that when it's over, I know what was said.
Yeah,
and in this space to talk about it, it's helpful. Like, in other words, when I did a story about it for the newscast, I knew immediately, well, I can revolve this around the 3 worst stories of General Conference. And I knew what they were because I could remember them. And what I couldn't remember, I could look up on my notes. Had about 100 pages of notes between all 5 sessions. It ran around 24 pages a session. So what's that, 120 pages roughly of notes? But they're divided up into each session, so they're more accessible.
I was just going to put up here on the screen, see if I can do this. So this is the 5 episodes. It's not very big here. Let's see if I can make this bigger.
You are great at making things bigger, Mr. Real.
Here we are. So 14,000, 12,000, 9,000, almost 15,000, 13,500. Those are good numbers for the things that go on this channel, and lots of new subscribers from that. So I really do think that people deeply appreciate not having to watch conference and have one of them share what was important to take away from it without having to sit through it and feel it.
Thank you, because I can really sympathize with not wanting to have to watch conference.
Yeah, it had to have been yucky. Like, you literally took our sins upon you.
And 5 showers.
Yeah. It was the sins of this thing that is unhealthy and is manipulating at every turn, and its inability to even entertain you while it does it.
And it's one of those things that every time I think, what am I going to have to say? It's just going to be the same old oatmeal.
And then it opens its mouth and it talks, and you have things to say.
And it's like, oh my gosh. And Neil Anderson, it's like I couldn't type fast enough. My keyboard burst into flame at one point.
Yeah. And I thought it was I forgot. I lost my thought, but I was thinking of something along the lines of you doing it in an entertaining way, helping people sort of get through it by making a chuckle and making a laugh and getting to do it in a way that's entertaining to them, it's beneficial to them, and yet they still get to keep their ear to the ground and know what's going on. It's a really big thing that you do. And I told you up front, like, you asked me 2 years ago or something, maybe 3 years ago, you said, do you want to do this with me? And I said, I really don't want to watch conference.
Right. I asked you if you would join me in this general conference postmortem thing.
Yeah, I said it's heavy and it's gross, and I don't want to sit and have to watch talk after talk that's just yucky. And you've done it, and kudos to you. I think you do a great thing for the folks in this community who need to know what happened.
Well, I will tell you, I think what part of the thing is this, and I'm realizing this as I'm speaking it, things are coming into place. I have in my life based my humor on various different models and sources. But one of the earliest sources for me was the Marx Brothers, and specifically Groucho Marx, which anybody who's familiar with him and them will immediately say, oh, well, of course. But not the only at all. In fact, when I'm channeling Groucho, I'll even give a little bit of Groucho ease to it, just to signal that that's what I'm doing. But the thing that's so funny about them, they have 10 movies, I think it is, and 5, maybe 6 are hysterically funny. The other 4, yeah. But they have got a group of movies that are some of the funniest stuff that's ever been put on film. From Coconuts to Monkey Business, to the Coconuts to Monkey Business, to A Night at the Opera, Animal Crackers. They've got all these great movies. Duck Soup and Horse Feathers. Those are actually the 6, I believe. The thing that drives the movies is taking people who are stuffed shirts and very high society and pompous because of it. And the Marx Brothers go in and they shred the scenery and they bring them all down a notch or two. And that's what the movies are about. It's always high society, and they're always going in and disrupting everything. And that's one of the things that makes it so delightful. At least to me, and to, millions of other people, right? Is bringing these people down a peg or two. Now, why is it that I'm talking about the Marx Brothers right now, Bill?
I don't know. I was going to just mention that the meme that came out, I think Rebecca sent it to you and to I don't know where she saw it. I think she didn't know where she saw it, but it was a meme that has that African-American man. I think he's in a yellow jacket, and he says, and he's like excited.
Behind
he's
the
like
tree and rubbing his hands to get. Oh no, that one. Yeah.
He's turning like away from the one thing, and then he's like, yeah, but there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 2-hour conference sessions on the top, and he's like, I don't know. And then on the bottom, it was, but an 1.5-hour session from Radio Free Mormon, and it was huge, yeah. That was so
like
good.
Fonz going. Now, I'll tell you why it was I was telling you about the Marx Brothers, okay?
All right.
It's because that's what I do with the Mormon Church, and that's what I do with the general authorities. because they are so effing pompous that everybody likes to see them brought down a notch or two, unless
Yeah.
they're so in the tank with them that, you really can't tell the difference anymore.
Yeah. Amen to that.
It's a gag waiting to be exploited is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, Lauren was reminding you, and before you say something though, but RFM, you were talking about an apostle from China. So before you,
Oh, it was a GA. It wasn't an apostle.
all right, I'll give you a second to do that. I just want to note.
She's reminding me.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Lauren. I was talking. It reminded me about this GA from China who's talking about his wife. They were on a mission. Their son, who is like some kind of incredible pianist, is appearing at Carnegie freaking Hall, and they can't go see him. Why? Mormonism. They can't leave the effing mission. The wife, his mom, can't leave the effing mission to go watch their son play the piano at Carnegie freaking Hall.
Do you choose us or them?
I'm sorry.
Do you choose us or them?
Was I raving?
Keep going, please.
That's the story. And he tells this as this is faith promoting. This is what faith looks like. It was, so that's what it put me in mind of. What was the story that you were telling that put me in mind of that story? Bill?
I don't remember.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Yes, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know.
Somebody's paying attention, Bill.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to say was that, folks, this show deeply depends on support. We do this. We show up every Friday, have a fun conversation that each of you can join in. We love the participation that you guys give. If you really enjoyed this conversation, if it entertains you, if you're getting laughs out of it, you can show us that. By the way, I just want to say thank you to the super chats. We've got Paul H. Dumb for $100, so I want to say thank you to him. Let me go back here. So Theodis, $9.99. Thank you so much. Laurel's a hell of a guest. I really enjoy the discussion of literature and its power to reveal humanity. Thank you, gentlemen. So there's that one. Daniel John Carey, $20. Thank you very much. Nice to hear this view being expressed. So many people have been in this situation with a family member pressing religion. So that was when Lauren was talking to us, not only Mormons. And then Diamond Dave, $10. Oh, cool, alive. So thank you, Diamond Dave. I just want to note, folks, if you want to support the show, please, you can go to MormonismLive.org. It would do the same thing. But there's also a Mormonism After Dark link, which I will send into the live chat so that folks can see that as well. I don't know what the story was, but we've got Kobe down there.
There's Kobe down there. If I look distracted, it's because I was trying to look up that talk, and from what I knew from it, I couldn't find it from General Conference. So sorry, everybody.
Gotcha. Let me
Take
bring
my word for it. I'm pretty darn sure I'm correct in all material respects. Kobe,
how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Great, thank you.
Good. You talking about that story of someone missing their kid's performance at Tammany, or I'm sorry, not Tammany Hall.
Tammany Hall.
That'd be a very different performance, one where someone ends up sleeping with the fishes, probably.
Yes, it may not have been Carnegie, but it was a big freaking deal, and that's why it was being featured in this story.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I was thinking about the fact that, so many times when people like us leave the church, members who remain inside of it are the apologists who are kind of on the edges and engage with people, in good faith or bad faith, I think is up to the jury to decide. But they often don't understand why people who leave the church are so upset or have regret or have difficulties, right? Like one example I can think of, Bill, is in your exchanges with Jacob Hansen. He's like bad faith cut some statements you made about being a parent and choosing to be a parent, and whether, if you really had access to making that choice, if you would have made that choice. And I think really just anyone who's honest is going to talk about how they don't know how that reality would have shaken out, right? It's a completely different situation.
I don't need to wear a mask anymore, Kobe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as RFM
I do. Several of them, actually.
That's right. I was thinking about the fact that when you leave the church, even if you like the life that you have outside the church, because I do, my wife and I met as missionaries. And so I always think about that when I think about the way I feel towards the church, that I realistically would have never met her if I had been raised Mormon. But the bottom line is that your life and the decisions that you make in your life are yours to make. And what I mean by that is the church, because of its conditioning, because of its control, helped or encouraged, or some would even say coerced, me to make certain decisions that you can't take back, right? Like your example with parenthood, Bill, or who you marry, or what you do, or opportunities you give up because of the church, or to serve a mission, or whatever. There's always sacrifices, right? And the thing that's so damaging when you leave the church and you have to deal with that reality is that the church took the opportunity from you to know that your life is the result of your choices instead of their conditioning. And so when people can't understand that anger or that upset, that's where it comes from, is that, there are these other, if you think about it like other timelines, there are these other Colbys out there that never got to be. And if that's the result of my choices, so be it. That's just the way life works. But there are Colbys I never got to be, not as the result of my choices, at least not
And it's
free will.
Yeah, and it's one thing if you have to sort of live with the decisions you made because you felt informed and you just made the wrong decision. It's a
Right.
whole nother thing when a make-believe religion manipulates you into making certain choices and you live a different life than you would have lived had you had the information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amen. That's the mess that is religious manipulation. That is what happens when you trust outside voices over your own conscience.
Yeah.
The question
absolutely.
rises whether it's your life at all at that point.
Mm-mm.
It's like they take from you the knowledge of your self-determination, that you are what you are because you chose it. It's something that I just feel like people who are in the inside, and they look and they see the stuff that we do, right? Like I saw comments on RFM's conference reports, I did one with Nemo, and I saw comments on that one too, where people are like, "Can't you do anything better with your time?" Or "Why do
I'm
you
doing
do
the
this?"
best I can. I'm sorry, Colby.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about the fact that just a
They're
comment like
saying,
that.
don't you have anything better to do with your time than challenge my religious beliefs and make me think that maybe I might have made the wrong decision when I got baptized?
Yeah, and I think what it demonstrates is that they really just don't understand it, right? That they don't understand our point of view. And the reality is that because we were fully TBM, we can understand their point of view and they can't understand ours. And I think that's why
Mm-mm.
so often we get to these points of divergence where we really can't have a productive conversation because they can't even conceive of the fact that they might be wrong about the church. And like that's where the biases come in, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just so frustrating to have those conversations. On this week's Mormonism Live, RFM and I were texting about this the other day. We had a believer in the comments that I was arguing with back and forth, and
Sneaks.
at a certain point, yeah, at a certain point, it just gets so frustrating when you're really trying to engage with someone and you ask them, why do you believe that? And they just reassert the same fucking thing like a circle. Like they don't even recognize that they're being asked, why do you believe that? And they can't even tell you. They just say that they do again, and again. And it's just so interesting to have those conversations.
They've been taught from day one to allow a narrative that says, that intuition you have, that gut feeling you've got, either A, you shouldn't trust it, or B, you'll feel it a certain way, and that's how you know that something's true. But it's true because we told you, not because you figured it out. And so if it contradicts, it's disallowed. And if it meshes along, it's not what the world would name it, your intuition, your conscience, your gut feeling. It's the Holy Ghost. And so you sort of you learn that emotional responses, when they are attached to your intelligence, are only trustable if they match the church's answer. And if an emotional response matches the church's answer, but your intelligence says something else, you're to go with the emotional response. And so it teaches you not to trust innately the very mechanisms that are just human that work through you, that help you decide what danger is and what truth is. And um, it sabotages that. And that's a deeply unhealthy thing that leads to, early, going back to your original thought, that leads you down 100 tracks of life that you never intended to go down. It sabotaged not your life. It sabotaged every moment of your life where a decision needed to be made.
Right. And
Yeah.
to your point about, spiritual experiences, the witness of the spirit, I think one of the things that I've kind of recognized in the last several months, now that my wife and I have been out of the church now, this is our third year. And the thing I've realized is there were so many experiences I had in the church that I would have classified as really powerful spiritual experiences that I remember bearing testimony about or teaching about. My last calling was all 4 years of adult gospel doctrine. And the thing I've been so amazed by in the last 6 months, or even sooner to having left the church, is all of those experiences that I thought were so magical and were so, ensconced in Mormonism. I have found every single one of those experiences outside of Mormonism. And like a perfect example is going to a concert of a band that you really like and you really like the fans and you're there connecting with people. It's exactly the same experience I remember having when I was 14 years old and I'm holding hands with people at EFY singing We Are As the Army of Helaman, or when
Mhm.
I'm doing yoga nidra with my wife and I can feel
I'm
just
sorry,
this
you're doing
connection.
what with your wife?
Yoga nidra. We're not talking about the mirrors on the ceiling.
Hang on a second. Do I have to have my filter off when I Google this?
Leave the
No,
safe filter on.
yoga nidra is just a really
Yoga
intense, like,
Nidra.
Is
yeah,
this
it's like
NSFW?
it's not safe for work.
Okay.
When I'm trying to
Sounds
be
like a lot
dirty,
of fun.
You'll know
when
it.
I'm trying
You
to,
RFM,
called in to Mormonism After Dark.
he's trying to be dirty. You'll know it, RFM.
yeah,
Ah,
I was
Does
just
it
gonna
involve
say,
the mirrors on the ceiling of your bedroom?
I didn't hear that.
Does it involve the ceilings? Does it involve the mirrors on the ceiling of your bedroom?
Not talking about that. No, we're talking about.
is it
I'm just,
close to baby goat yoga? Have you done baby
yeah.
goat yoga? They said that's the cool thing to do. I don't know. I'm trying to think
It's
about being in downward dog while a goat dances on my back. That's a little weird.
it's just one of those things that when you get real deep in meditation, you can have these really powerful spiritual experiences that just they're so comparable to the things I had in Mormonism. But the Mormon version of me would have never believed that. And I think that's the thing that's just it's just funny as you get some distance on it, as you listen to general conferences and Exmo, you're just like, dear God, this is the most boring thing I've ever heard. I can't believe I
Mm.
ever saw I can't believe I
15,
ever saw
yeah,
yeah. And just the
15
story
old.
so
Yeah.
obviously, like every story, even if there's a kernel of truth in a story they tell, the way they tell it is like so obviously bullshit. Like it is like like the way they get the patter down and the pacing and they work in like spots for jokes. It's like it's truly pathetic to watch and
It's a
see how
performance.
much yeah, well, and how much money and resources they have access to, how smart these people are on paper, but it
And
is
how
like
much they
the
spend
most
on this spectacle.
I know. It's the
This is
most
like a
banal thing I've
Jurassic
ever.
Park dinosaur tour without any dinosaurs.
That's right.
15 old men. Not
Hey,
only out
hey,
of
knock it
touch.
off of the old man stuff,
Well,
okay,
I'm going to
Del?
say it. 15 white old men out of touch, being willing at every turn to be deceptive where needed, and boring. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, it just feels kind of gross to watch General Conference. So
You
again,
know,
thank
it
you,
wouldn't
Mark.
make any difference. It wouldn't make it any more exciting if they were young and multicolored, is all I'm saying.
It wouldn't, because what they say is still, yeah, boring, useless, and harmful.
Yes.
Yeah. Yuck.
Yeah.
All
My
right. Well,
last.
Striking a
Oh,
blow for
sorry.
ageism.
yeah, go ahead, Colby.
I was just going to say my last general conference in the church, just to drive this point home, Bill, when I'm sitting there questioning, we watched the entire general conference, and I was really, really, it was one of those things where you're like hoping for the spirit to impact you and to influence you and lead you back in, right? It's exactly like King Lamoni's father in the Book of Mormon. Like, I would give up everything to just have this. That's what I was hoping for. We
Mm-hmm.
watched that entire general conference and there was like fucking nothing. And then it just so happened that Netflix advertised a Brene Brown special like that they had just released that same day. And my
Mm-hmm.
wife and I decided to turn on that hour-long Brene Brown special on Netflix. And both of us, as still like believing but questioning TBMs, say like we learned more and saw more honesty in that hour than we did in the entire like 10 hours earlier that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Churches choose to intentionally, specifically high demand churches, choose to intentionally not teach healthy human concepts like consent. Name one time in the LDS church where consent was taught in a thorough, healthy way.
Well, that doesn't work for the church.
Doesn't
I wouldn't
exist.
expect them to cover that.
Why would
Not-
they want Why would they want anyone to know about consent? They wouldn't.
Yeah, not the polygamy cartoon, Bill, I can tell you that.
They get away with saying bad stuff about vulnerability and authenticity. They've mentioned before, like, oh, the so-called world talks about how important it is to be vulnerable or authentic. And then they got their bullshit. But they don't say anything about consent. They just leave it completely out because to say the opposite view people would notice that. It's more noticeable. So they go silent about it. Not taught at all. Anyway, thank you, Kobe.
Thanks, guys.
Colby, you're great. Thanks for joining us tonight. He's out of here. We're out of here. We're at 141 minutes.
This is it. I think it was a great show. Great show. Oh,
this is the best show ever.
Yeah, I love it. I think
I don't know. 3 weeks ago was pretty good. That was, I think, when we had Julie and Britt on.
Yeah, that was phenomenal.
I keep track of it by my ties because I got 3 different ties and I rotate them weekly. And I believe I had the white tie on then, so I think it was 3 weeks ago.
I love it. I wear this because my girlfriend suggested that I. By the way, I said my girlfriend suggested that I wear a black and black and let the chain hang out. And so I always try to say, Kwaku looks good dressing this way. I'm just giving it a shot to see if I can even halfway fill those shoes. So
yeah. What do you think this is? Training day?
I'm just trying. I'm in Kwaku apprenticeship, so I'm trying. I need to lose probably another 80 pounds before I would try to wear the wife beaters that he wears. But we'll stick with this. I got the
this isn't training day, Bill.
Yeah, can I hold my breath under the water? Am I Cuba Gooding Jr. trying to learn to survive boot camp in some sort of high military program?
I don't know. I've never seen the movie. Is it good?
Yeah, it's great. It's a fantastic movie. I highly recommend it.
I've just seen the posters. So many of my comments go off posters. I've actually never seen any of the movies or read any of the books I reference. I said it.
Well, there you go. Take us home, my friend.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. It's been a great show, a wonderful show. So glad you would join us on this Friday night. Hope you have a great weekend. Please join us on Monday at 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time for the next episode of the Mormon Newscast when we will be joined by Rebecca Biblioteca. Good night, everybody. Thanks again.